I'm Dr. Daniel Kantor with MS World, and we're here in Barcelona at ECTRIMS conference. And I'm so happy to be joined once again by Dr. Gary Cutter, who's a professor of biostatistics at UAB School of Public Health. One of the things that happens in a medical conference is that there are plenary sessions, there are opening ceremonies, there are posters, there's exhibits, and then there are different lectures on different topics. We've talked to some people about one of the topics, which was safety and risk management. But Dr. Cutter, you were in another one of those sessions. Tell us about the session that you attended.
The session I was in was focused on clinical trial design and study outcomes. And how do we know what we're measuring? How do we know to design studies to get questions and answers from patients that are meaningful? So there was a series of two invited talks. I gave one, and Olga Ciccarelli from London gave the other. And then we moved on to specific presentations about various topics that might be of interest. The two plenary talks, the big talks that we gave were, one was about the kinds of outcome measures that we're using in MS trials today and how we can use those to track what's going on with patients, not just at a clinical level, but at a subclinical level in their MRIs. I was talking about some of the newer designs that people can use to sort of feel their way through and stop designs if it's seemingly not going to pan out, and do it earlier so that we can move research faster. And the downsides where we actually take a little bit longer and we're more sure of our outcome. The individual talks were on different outcomes. One of interest was showing that a single question patient-reported outcome was able to essentially stand in for a physician-measured outcome that's widely used in MS, the EDSS, and this patient-determined disease step actually performs extremely well. We use it as our primary outcome measure in NARCOMs when we're measuring things, so we were very happy to see this result because it enables us to use patient-reported outcomes and link them to what's going on with other drug trials. There were several other presentations, one on a very elaborate neurostatus way of measuring the EDSS, where they use feedback to improve physicians' performance in actually making the measurements. Another talk that was given by one of my colleagues, Amber Salter, was looking at the mixture of patients who get into studies, even though they're all in the same eligibility criteria, but how that has effects on the results of a trial. And it impacts quite a bit of how, when we listen to the results of studies, how one study may not be comparable to the other because the mix of patients is slightly different, even though they all had the same entrance criteria. And that's an important consideration because sometimes we think one drug might look like it's better than another drug, and it's really due to the population that's mixed.
Tell me about this one question that you use in NARCOMs. What is that question?
It's called the patient-determined disease steps, and it essentially asks, how do you feel about various things in your health regarding components of the disabilities that you might experience, from none all the way up to I need to walk with a cane or I need a wheelchair. And the descriptors that are there help link it to this very elaborately measured EDSS, which is based upon a complete neurological exam.
Well, this is very important. It's important for two reasons. One is more and more this focus on patient-reported outcomes. And we're hearing that both from federal funders and federal regulators, as well as from patient groups, as well as from doctor groups. So that's one thing that's really, really important. The other thing that's important is what you talked about, being able to stop studies early or make studies go faster and adaptive designs, because one of the biggest frustrations we see in the clinic is people say to me, oh, that's nice that you say there's something that's going to be 10 years from now. What about tomorrow? What about today? And so it's great to see that we can do research in proper ways and get good data, but be able to do a little bit faster. Dr. Cutter, it's always great talking to you. I want to thank you so much for joining us.